Let's start this off by saying that PaRappa the Rapper is a creative, imaginative experience from start to finish. It's a piece of gaming history. This is one of the very first rhythm games that ever got released on a home console. Everything about this game is fantastic, and I really think you should play PaRappa the Rapper. PaRappa the Rapper, the game, that is, not the character, is filled to the brim with colorful, creative characters and environments. The actual game uses 2D characters in a 3D setting, so every person in the game is a 2D cutout, more or less, and is animated as if they were 3D. The different settings and venues used for the cutscenes and levels are modeled in 3D too. The game looks absolutely fantastic. There's so much color and life in every single scene. The 2D cutout aesthetic works wonderfully for the game. Colors are vibrant and stick out, but it never feels like the environment is clashing with itself. It must have taken a lot of work to make Rodney Greenblatt's art into a fully realized world, but at the end of the day, the PaRappa team delivered. The soundtrack, while short, is full of absolute bangers. Chop Chop Master Onion's rap? Banger. Instructor Mussolini's rap? Banger. Prince Flea Swallow's rap? Bang. You get the idea. If it wasn't obvious by the title of the game, most of the songs are rap and hip-hop related, but at the same time the game keeps an incredibly light tone. The word innocent comes to mind when I think of PaRappa the Rapper because most of the situations presented in the story are lighthearted and goofy. Speaking of story, you play as PaRappa the Rapper, the small dog-like thing in an orange hat. PaRappa the Rapper is a rapper, who uses rap to solve most of his problems. We start off introducing the characters. They enter a diner and sit down to eat, then a big bully comes over to steal the girls from the group, and oh yeah, there are like 4 people in the main group: PaRappa, the bear guy, Kitty Cat, and Sunny Funny. So the bully comes in, and then Joe Chin shows up. He comes out of the bathroom a la Pulp Fiction. Joe Chin is the main antagonist. The reason I put antagonist in quotes is because he's not really a threat to the group. He just wants to steal Sunny from PaRappa the Rapper. Oh, okay, I'll stop. From here, PaRappa daydreams about beating up the bully and defending the group on his own, so he decides to take karate lessons from Chop Chop Master Onion. Herein lies the core cycle of the game. Each stage is just PaRappa facing his everyday problems with a go-getter attitude. Most of these problems are common to most teens. Learning karate to try and be cool, getting a car and a driver's license, having to earn money by getting a job, and needing to shit real bad. Every problem is tackled by PaRappa and his trademark TM catchphrase, "Believe it."
Believe it!
Oh wait, no, it's I gotta believe.
I gotta believe!
He's optimistic to a T, and that's part of why he's so easy to root for. But yeah, after learning karate, Joe Chin shows up again to flaunt his new car in front of the gang. PaRappa is impressed and not jealous or bitter. It's refreshing to have a main character that isn't a bitter asshole, but I suppose this was '97, so it was a lot easier to be optimistic. But seeing Joe's car gets PaRappa thinking about how nice it would be to have his own, so he decides to get his driver's license. After getting that license, PaRappa takes the crew out for a drive and subsequently destroys his father's car. He immediately thinks about how he's going to have to pay for it. Needing money, he gets a job from some lizard guy. Once he replaces the car, he has to buy a cake for Sunny's birthday. Joe Chin shows up with a massive cake that dwarfs PaRappa's, and Joe accidentally knocks PaRappa's cake onto the ground. It's hard to tell if it's intentional or not, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Without money to buy another cake, PaRappa decides he'll bake one instead. He watches a baking channel on the television that's hosted by a chicken, which is kind of screwed up how she cracks eggs into a bowl. Where did she get those eggs? After making the cake and going on a picnic with the crew, PaRappa ends up eating too much and needs to take a poo. Hey, that rhymed. For some reason, his I need to poo face turns Sunny on. That's kind of weird. He drives him and Sunny to a gas station and runs into the back to use the restroom, only to find the 4 rap masters waiting in line to use it themselves. They decide to rap for it.
Yeah, I know.
I know.
I know.
I know! Let's rap for it!
That's a good idea.
Hurry up.
Yeah, there's a song about needing to poo. It's great.
Okay, you win. Ribbit, I can't hold it. Last toilet with me up, me already sold it.
Finally, PaRappa gets invited to a live show and gets to invite one friend. He invites Sunny and they go together but get separated in the crowd. PaRappa is lifted on stage and given a mic and subsequently raps, capping off the game. Once the player has beaten the game, they can go back and try to get the cool rankings on all stages, which is where all the replay value comes from. Moving on to the gameplay. There's a lot to talk about. It's a rhythm game and therefore pretty self-explanatory. The songs are all about call and response. A master spits a bar or two, and PaRappa raps it back at them. This goes for all the stages, and honestly, it's not as tiring as it sounds. There's something quite funky about hearing PaRappa repeat whatever a master says. It just works.
Crack, break, fix the door, you know. I gotta go, so yes, open up, you know.
Crack, break, fix the door, you know. I gotta go, so yes, open up, you know.
There's also a really nice moment in the final stage where the game ditches the call and response style of rapping in favor of PaRappa rapping on his own. This means that the button prompts just show up and you're supposed to press them as they come. It might initially throw off a player, but it's refreshing and shows that PaRappa has learned a lot on his journey and is finally ready to take the wheel for himself. It's a small touch left at the very end of the game, but it's a very interesting way to end things. There isn't much depth to this game. That is, unless you want to go for the cool rankings. What's really unique about this game is the scoring system. Each stage has this little meter above the lyrics box. It shows you how well you're rapping. At the bottom is awful, and then above that is bad. After bad comes good, and at the top is cool. Every single stage will start off with you rapping good. The thing that's extra cool about this game is that there are 4 tracks associated with every stage, one for each ranking. So if you're rapping good, you'll hear the default track for the stage.
Kick, punch, it's all in the mind. If you wanna test me, I'm sure you'll find the things I'll teach ya. Sure to beat ya. Nevertheless, you'll get a lesson from teacher now.
If you dip into bad, then you'll hear a different version of the stage's music, usually, you know, with less flair in it.
Kick, punch, it's all in the mind. If you wanna test me, I'm sure you'll find the things I'll teach ya. Sure to beat ya. Nevertheless, you'll get a lesson from teacher now.
Same goes for awful.
Kick, punch, it's all in the mind. If you wanna test me, I'm sure you'll find the things I'll teach ya. Sure to beat ya. Nevertheless, you'll get a lesson from teacher now.
And if you're rapping cool, you'll hear the default music put through a phaser effect.
Kick, punch, it's all in the mind. If you wanna test me, I'm sure you'll find the things I'll teach ya. Sure to beat ya. Nevertheless, you'll get a lesson from teacher now.
You can unlock a hidden mode by acing all the 6 stages in the main story. When I say acing, I mean ending the stage with a cool rating. How do you get a cool rating? Well, that's part of the fun. In PaRappa the Rapper, you don't actually have to put any of the right inputs in at the right time. That's right, you can freestyle button presses.
Jump and pose.
As long as the buttons have an associated soundbite in the current bar, or bars if there's more than one, you can press them out of order as much as you want. Pressing a button that isn't in the bar results in PaRappa saying, "Uh-oh." This is a wonderful mechanic and I really appreciate that it was implemented. It means exploration of the engine is rewarded. The player is never outright told how to get a cool rating, so it's a big moment when the player figures out what they should be doing. When you enter a cool rating, you're given a chance to freestyle even more. When I say freestyle, I mean that each button has its associated sound clip throughout the song tied to it, and pressing that button will play more of these clips. So it's like you have a soundboard of PaRappa's lines throughout the stage.
M-I-X, crack, 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 M-M-M-I-X, X, 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 crack, crack, crack.
This mode lasts as long as the song would usually last from that point onward. So say you entered the cool rating halfway through a song, you'll have half of that song to freestyle through before you finish the stage. You can also fail yourself out of cool mode, so don't get too cocky. It can be extremely hard to get a cool rating in the first place, and requires the player think outside of the box and has a good rhythm in their button presses. It can also be hard to keep the cool rating until the end of the song. Most of the challenge comes from trying to keep things in rhythm. Speaking of the rating system, you don't immediately go from good to bad or bad to awful. You have to screw up 2 bars in a row to change ranks. Alternatively, you have to successfully complete 2 bars in a row to increase your rank. As stated, getting a cool rating isn't as easy as just rapping on time. Another quirk of the system is that sometimes you'll do bad enough on a bar that the game will dock points but not send you down into bad or awful. So you can kind of hover in a good ranking even though you screw up 3 or 4 bars in a row. I'm guessing the game knows how close you are to rapping the actual inputs and judges accordingly. There are also some follies. It's hard to put into words, but sometimes it feels like the game calls inputs wrong. For example, in Cheep Cheep's rap, it feels like all the inputs are just timed wrong and slightly off. It's hard to put into words. It could be that emulating this has completely thrown off the timing. That is, the timing when compared to playing this on a CRT television. I haven't played PaRappa the Rapper on a television before, but I'm guessing it was attuned to that timing and the slight visual delay between a television and the player. Or, you know, lack of delay. It's also unclear when you're supposed to hit any given button. Do I press it when PaRappa's face is directly over the prompt? Do I press it right after his face passes the prompt? Or do I press it when the prompt grows big for a second after his face passes over it? The answer is unclear, because every single stage seems to be timed differently from others. That means when emulating this game, the first 3 stages are tuned okay, and then you hit Cheep Cheep's rap and suddenly it's impossible to time presses correctly. It's beyond frustrating and a massive strike against emulating the game, which is the only reason I can think of that this is happening. Holding different directions on the D-pad will have different effects. For example, holding up on the D-pad while rapping might occasionally reveal a secret hidden within the stage, like this onion showering in the first stage, or Prince Flea Swallow swallowing this fly. Wait a minute. Holding right or left on the D-pad will also result in the last audio clip associated with the button being played again.
Whatever like in the middle fiddle.
Seafood cake comes just like the riddle.
Seafood comes just like the riddle.
So say, in the first level, when you come across the line duck, jump, and it's 2 presses of the L button, holding right on the D-pad after the first press of the L button and pressing L again will result in PaRappa saying duck again. You can use this to great effect when freestyling a bar or in cool mode. The game is very technical and at the same time very loose. Sometimes when I go from a good ranking to a cool ranking, it feels like luck. Sometimes it feels like I should go up to cool, but don't. It's weird. Some additional notes I wrote down while writing this script. I have no earthly idea how the heck the game calculates what is and isn't a good bar. I may never know. It feels completely random sometimes. There's a score system, but it's basically pointless. Wait, did I just make a pun? This is the kind of game you should play at least once in your life. It's colorful, full of life, and extremely optimistic. Moving on to the conclusion. This is usually the part where I make a statement on whether or not PaRappa the Rapper is worth the money. Well, kind of. It's hard to really put a price on this game. Either you buy a physical copy on eBay for a lot of money, or you buy the remastered version on the PS4. There's a secret third option, but that's illegal. I'd say the PS4 version is worth the 15 bucks they're charging. The game is incredibly short, but it's a fun romp from start to finish and a piece of gaming history that everyone should play at least once in their life. Thanks again for watching. I really appreciate it if you've watched it to the end and, What? What do you mean? Talk about the sequel. What sequel? Jammer Lammy is a rhythm video game and a spiritual successor to PaRappa the Rapper. So after PaRappa the Rapper was finished, the developers would go on to make a spin-off, Jammer Lammy. A lot of the gameplay is carried over from PaRappa the Rapper, so if you like the first game, you'll like this one too. The story revolves around Lammy, a lamb who plays guitar. Opening with the dream sequence, the game starts with Lammy running late for a gig. Lammy plays the lead guitar in Milk Can, a band comprised of 3 women, a vocalist, bassist, a drummer, and a guitarist. Players of PaRappa the Rapper will also notice that the vocalist is Katie Cat, a friend of PaRappa. When Lammy arrives on stage, we see Chop Chop Master Onion, who talks about how he lost his dojo, but always keeps it in his mind. In that sense, he still has a dojo. The thought of having a dojo in your mind helps Lammy fight her shyness and play on stage alongside Master Onion. Afterwards, we find out that Lammy was playing a vacuum cleaner this whole time. Lammy wakes up from this dream and suddenly realizes she only has 15 minutes to get to her band's concert. She rushes out the door and tries to get to the venue as fast as she can, but constantly gets interrupted or obstructed. The first obstacle is a crew of firefighters fighting a fire. Lammy says she needs to get past, and the main firefighter suggests she helps him fight the fire. At first she's reluctant, but then Chop Chop Master Onion's words about dojo, casino, it's all in the mind, helps her think of the fire hose as a guitar, which she knows how to use. That's where the main idea of the story lies. No matter where you are, you can be confident in what you do and approach any problem with a fresh attitude and perspective. After putting out the fire, she chows down on some pizza and inflates. She then gets caught in a parade about making love. She's mistaken as pregnant and taken to a hospital by nurse Kathy Pillar. I love these names, by the way. When Kathy finds out Lammy was just inflated, she just tells her to put the babies to sleep with a guitar instead. This is probably one of my favorite songs in the whole game.
Now put these kids to sleep, will ya?
From there, she hops on a plane and has to help co-pilot. The actual pilot keeps getting hit in the head and swaps his personality from cool, aloof dude to drill sergeant again and again and again. After helping him fly, Lammy lands the plane and forgets her guitar in it. Realizing she needs to get a new one, she hops into the nearest guitar store and finds out they don't have what she needs. So the owner, very creepily, asks her if she'll do anything for the guitar, and then hands her a chainsaw. Then they saw a tree into a guitar and Lammy heads to the concert venue. Here's a fun note, what happens next is different between the US release of the game and the Japan and PAL counterparts. In the North American version of the game, Lammy gets her belt stuck on a doorknob and gets flung backwards throughout all the stages of the game, and eventually lands on an island where she's then hastily pulled into a concert to play guitar. In the Japan and PAL version, she fucking dies. From there, she goes to hell and plays guitar at a concert. The stage itself is the same between both versions of the game, but in the North American version, Lammy gets to wear a different costume, which is pretty neat. After playing the concert, she's sent back to where she came from and makes it to her own concert just in time. There's also a funny joke about how all the band members were running late, so Lammy wasn't the only one stressed out. Now that the band is all together and at the venue, they play the show as intended. This song is also a personal favorite just because of how uplifting it is. That about wraps up the story for Jammer Lammy. It's a happy ending and what? What's that? What do you mean second campaign? After completing Lammy's story, you unlock PaRappa's. From there you play as PaRappa, rapping through the same scenarios that Lammy had jammed through. The gameplay of Jammer Lammy is pretty much the same as PaRappa the Rapper. It's a rhythm game where you match button presses to prompts. The only difference is that instead of rapping, you're jamming on a guitar, and even then, you're only doing that for Lammy's campaign. The timing just feels a bit better and more finely tuned. They also have moments where Lammy jams in the middle of a master's bar, which is only semi-present in PaRappa the Rapper. The game itself is fairly harder than its previous counterpart and throws a lot more at the player. I failed quite a lot in Jammer Lammy, more than I did in PaRappa the Rapper. Jammer Lammy also introduces a two-player mode, where Lammy can jam with her evil counterpart or PaRappa the Rapper. When it comes to the soundtrack, I'd have to say that Jammer Lammy is just as catchy as PaRappa the Rapper, and a lot of them stick in your head. Additional notes I had for Jammer Lammy: there are a fun few callbacks, my favorite being at the start of the game when she tries to think of an excuse as to why she's late.
I told them it was an emergency, but they said,
Let's rap for it!
nah.
Some eagle-eye viewers may notice that Lammy is left-handed and plays a left-handed guitar. Something I should mention that's fairly important in PaRappa's campaign is that he has noticeably worse audio than Lammy's. His lines are compressed to hell, and the game itself suffers slightly because of it.
Yeah, welcome to the
This has been my long desire.
This has been my long desire.
I suppose this was essential to keeping the game on one disc, but honestly I'd prefer if the game had been on two to keep the quality of the audio as high as possible. Because you're jamming on a guitar for Lammy's campaign, a lot of the freestyling just sounds better than it did in PaRappa the Rapper. It's easier to make a guitar sound more in line with a song than it is rapping. Conclusion Part 2. Is Jammer Lammy worth a buy? Yeah, of course. The developers, designers, and composers were all on their A game, and it shows. Jammer Lammy is another game you should play before you die. It's just that good. Thanks again for watching. I hope you liked the double bill. Go ahead and subscribe if you want. Leave a like if you like the video. I really appreciate you all. I'm gonna go play some more PaRappa the Rapper now.